of Erasmus. Thank you. So we usually hear of Erasmus in context of higher education, but here in Lergus, we manage Erasmus in adult education, school sector, vocational education and training, youth and sports. This cycle at the moment is between 2021 and 2027. So there are some of the program priorities within Erasmus that are besides the themes that your projects will have that are specific and relevant to your organizations. There are also kind of 4 main priorities of Erasmus Plus. So we have inclusion and diversity is just to make sure that the projects are inclusive and that any barriers to participation are removed. That you that there's digital transformation so that you're using digital ways to implement your projects or tools. Also the environment and fight against climate change. So the focus on sustainability and environmental sustainability, and also participation in democratic life, common values, and civic engagement. So they are kind of the priorities that will be embedded in your project beside the overall themes that you will all have, the individual themes. The workshop today is for adult education, which involves non-vocational, formal, non-formal, or informal education, and then also vocational education and training. And this is in general initial vocation and training, so full awards at levels 4, 5, or 6. It's important for us to mention this because unlike the rest of Europe, here in Ireland, we kind of have adult education under FET, further education and training, but within Erasmus, there are 2 distinct sectors. So as you will see later on when we go through the application form, it's very important to describe your organization and to really describe to which sector it belongs, whether it's adult ed or vocational education and training. So I'll just give a brief overview of the activities. So some of these activities are common to both adult ed and vocational education and training, and some are specific. So we will have different slides kind of to emphasize that. So we'll start with courses and training, and this is for both sectors, so adult ed and vocational education and training. It's a good way to start in Erasmus if you're kind of not sure yet what you're doing. This is a good activity to start with. So the duration is between 2 and 30 days. You can select any course provider that you feel is adequate for your needs. The commission doesn't really get involved into approving or disapproving course providers. It's up to you. The choice of the provider is up to you. It's important just to note that only maximum of 10 days is funded by Erasmus, that it needs to be a structured course, that it needs to be provided by qualified professional, that you have a predefined learning program with learning outcomes associated with it, that there are participants from at least 2 countries that are interacting with each others, and interaction between learners and trainers. So the passive activities are not supported, such as lectures, speeches, or mass conferences, and we do have quality standards that kind of will help you decide whether or not the course is suitable for you. So this is a good activity kind of to, if you might not have a partner in place yet, and maybe you're thinking what to do. So this is a good activity to start with. Then we have job shadowing, so both in adult ed and vet sector. This is a little more, it involves kind of spending a period of time at a hosting organization. You're learning from your peers, you're learning about new practices, gathering new ideas. You're seeing how they are doing things, how they implement their teaching methods, their learning and teaching environment. So it's a little more personal than courses and training. It involves observation and interaction with peers, experts, or other practitioners, and it's between 2 and 60 days. Next up, we have teaching and training assignments. They're usually between 2 and 365 days, although we don't see many of these. So this involves spending a period of time teaching or providing training to learners. It's based in a hosting organization in another country, and you're learning through completing tasks and exchanging your experience with peers. So it really basically involves you doing the job that you're doing here in Ireland, but doing it abroad in a different organization. If you're doing this, let us know. We don't get many of these applications. Then we have group mobility of adult learners. So this is a new activity. We're very excited about this. It's between 2 and 30 days. It's at least 2 learners per group. Cooperation, it involves cooperation between sending and hosting organization. In adult ed sector, it can be between formal, informal, and non-formal learning. For example, peer learning, work-based learning, or volunteering. And qualified trainers must accompany the learners. There's slight difference between this activity between adult ed and vet. So for vet, it's just to kind of emphasize that because we have an individual activity for learners as well, that the difference between these two activities, so it's not about how they travel, it's what they're doing during mobility period. So for vet, the duration is between 2 and 30 days. It's at least 2 learners per group. They can spend time learning together with their peers at partner vet provider abroad. It can be complemented with work-based learning, but it doesn't have to be. Commercial ready-made activities are not eligible. You can have cultural content as part of peer learning. However, that must be secondary to the main learning activity. It involves cooperation between sending and hosting organizations. So it's to vet provider abroad. And also there's accompanying persons for the full duration. We have also short-term learner activity. So for adult education, it's between 2 and 29 days. And we also have long-term, so it's between 30 and 365 days. They're very similar, just different in duration. It involves individual learning program for each participant, whereas the group mobility, it didn't involve individual. It was kind of a one learning program for the whole group. So that was the main difference rather than how they travel. It involves evaluation and certification of learning outcomes, and the activities that involves it's in-class learning, work-based learning, job shadowing, observation, and other innovative approaches. So that's for adult education. And for vocational education and training, so the duration is different. So it's 10 to 89 days for short-term and 90 to 365 days for long-term activities. It also involves individual learning program for each participant. However, it also involves, which is not the case for short-term, for the group mobility or for adult ed, a strong work-based component. And then shorter mobilities are available for learners with fewer opportunities. This is just kind of because there's a lot of terminology is very similar. So this just kind of to give you an idea of the difference between individual versus group mobility in vocational education and training. So individual has strong work-based learning component, whereas the group is focused on peer learning activities. For the individual, we have individual learning program, and for the group, we have collective learning program. The duration for the individual is 10 to 89 days, whereas for group is 2 to 30 days. The organizational support, it's higher for individual because it does reflect that work that is involved in actually designing an individual learning program for each participant, whereas it's €100 per person for the group activity. In terms of partners, for the individual, it has to be vet provider, company, or organization active in vet or label market because it does have that strong workplace component, whereas for the group activity, it's partner to vet provider only. The accompanying persons are optional for the individual, and they are they have to accompany the participants for the entire duration for the group activity. If you have any questions in relation to this, please put them in the chat. We know that this is a little bit confusing, and we're covering 2 sectors as well. So we have people in the background who are ready to answer any questions you might have. So this is for adult ed, the difference between individual and group mobility. So it's not based on travel arrangement. It's to do with rather collective or individual learning programs, and organizational support funding reflects the investment required to develop learning programs for each cohort. Also, when it comes to vet, we have participation in vet skills competitions. So this is between 1 and 10 days where they can participate in international sectoral events. And the funding is also provided for staff, mentors, or expert accompanying the learners. We also have other opportunities across both sectors. So we have invited experts. This is when, if you're not able to travel, you can invite an expert from abroad to come and demonstrate or teach your staff or your organization in a method or in a topic that you're interested in. You can also host teachers and educators in training. So between 10 and 365 days, it's somebody coming to teach and train in your organization. There's also a preparatory visit. So this is not standalone, and it's connected. It's for the purpose of preparatory visit is to prepare better for your mobility. So it might be to improve the inclusion aspect. You might have a participant with fewer opportunities that is going on a mobility, and you want to make sure that that the organization or the hosting organization they're going to is accessible. We also have, so the preparatory visits, just to say, are not, it can't be made as preparation for courses and training, but they can be made for the other activities. We also have inclusion support, so there's accompanying people. So and we encourage accompanying people, especially if you have participants with fewer opportunities. They're not a separate activity. They're not staff activity. They are there to support the learners. And then there's also practical supports. Stephen will talk about it a little later in relation to the budget. So there are the other opportunities. This is where you can go. So it's 27 EU member states. And then we also have Iceland, Liechtenstein, North Macedonia, Norway, Serbia, and Turkey. And this is just to give you an idea of the funding, but as I said, Stephen will cover this. So the organizational support varies between 100 and 500 per person. The individual support varies by destination. Travel costs are based on distance traveled. We will demonstrate this in the application form as well. Preparatory visits are 680 per person, and maximum 3 participants can be involved in one preparatory visit, and it's 1 preparatory visit per project. And there's also inclusion support, so which is 125 per participant with fewer opportunities, and you can also claim for real costs where justified. This slide is just to give you an idea of the criteria, the assessment criteria. So I will cover different parts of the application form. And I will say, well, for example, when talking about relevance, make sure you describe your organization. So this is just to give you an idea that the relevant score is 20 points, the quality of project design is 50 points, and then the quality of follow-up action is 30 points. So the relevance, it's your profile, whether vocational education training or adult education. Make sure that the proposal is relevant to the objectives of this action, that it's relevant for the promotion of shared values, that it's supporting newcomers and less experienced organizations and participants with fewer opportunities. Then the quality of project design. So it's just that you identify your needs and challenges correctly, that your objectives are linked to your organizational needs and also linked to the activities that you select, that the activities that you choose are appropriate for the achievement of project objectives, that you incorporate environmentally sustainable, responsible practices, and the use of digital tools. So this is just some of I've already kind of briefly covered this at the start when we mentioned the priorities of the program, and then kind of the quality of follow-up actions refers to kind of clearly defining tasks and responsibilities for project management, that you're integrating the results in your organization's regular work, that you're evaluating project outcomes, and that you have a system in place kind of to share the results of your project internally and externally. Finding partners. So these are just some of the links that will assist you in finding partners. So there's a list of Irish funded projects on our website. You can also look at the E+ projects platform. There's also School Education Gateway and EPALE. So they have a good partner. EPALE has a really good partner search. There's a good way there's a good kind of a resource within eTwinning on School Education Gateway to look for courses. So there are just some different links that combined kind of might give you an idea of where to go in terms of partner search. These are just some of the other opportunities. They're not managed by Lergas. They're managed directly by the commission, but we're just they're just kind of here just in case you're interested. So other actions rather than not only Erasmus. This will be if you would like to find out more about this will be included on the slides that we will send as a follow-up email. So what next? The deadline is on the 20th of February, 11 a.m. Irish time, so very important. It's the after 11, even if it's 2 seconds, it's not possible to submit. So the project start date is anytime between 1st of June and 31st of December for a project duration of 6 to 18 months. And I have a link here to the application form, which I will open next, but I might stop sharing here just to see if there's any questions in the chat box. I know that this was a really, really quick overview. It's just because we would kind of like to have time to look at the application form. We have covered most of this information as part of the information sessions already. Okay, all good. There's no questions. Okay, so I will just share the screen and I will show you the application form. Can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so this is the application form. On the link at the end of the last slide, when you click on it, it brings you to the page where you log in using your EU login details. And then you select, maybe I should have opened, I don't have that screen. It'll be included in the slides, where you select, so KA122, either the form either for vet or adult ed. And when you open the form, so this is the form, you have all your content menu is on the left-hand side, and all these questions will be read when you start working on it. And as you're completing them, they will turn green. You can, so the application, when you click on the question beside the application form, it'll give you the guidelines for how to complete the form. When you click on the PDF here, it will download this form in the PDF along with your last changes. So this is good, for example, if you start completing the form and you've put in an incorrect OID and you realize that and you've already completed 40% of the form, when you change the OID, if you have saved it previously in PDF, you can just copy and paste the information in, it's not lost. I will cover the qualitative parts of this form before passing on to Stephen, who will go through the budget part. So I will just go to the end first, just to kind of draw your attention to the sharing part of the form. So when you start working on your form, you can actually add people that you would like to work on this with you. You add their names and their email addresses, and then just make sure that you click this active box and that you save changes. And that means that they can access this form as well. And they also will have different permissions. So some of them can write and submit, some can only submit, write. I just put this, added my colleagues' details and just different permissions, just to give you an idea of what that involves. So that's for the sharing part, which is important to do at the end. So we will start with the context next. So you select your project title here, you select the project start date and the duration, and then the project end date will be calculated then automatically. We were talking about the project start date and duration during the information workshop, so you can select any date between the 1st of June and the 31st of December. It depends on your own calendar, on the duration of your year, whether or not you need to do any preparation during the summer. So if you have any questions in relation to this and you're not sure about your project start dates, send us an email or give us a call and we will talk about this. So you select the national agency, it's IEO1 Lergas, that's our national agency here, and the language. So that's just the context. Next up is participating organization. So it will ask you to select your OID, and then it'll populate the information based on the information provided on the system, or you will add your legal name, your country. It will ask you here as well whether or not you plan to work with supporting organizations. So supporting organizations are helping you with implementation, but they're not actually hosting your participants. So if you are working with the supporting organization, and if you answer yes here, it will ask you to provide details in relation to that organization. Maybe some of you who are coming back from last year, you're wondering why this section doesn't have the information on the hosting organization, but that is on the form. It just has been moved to the activities. So this section here is asking you, and it's very important because supporting organizations and hosting organizations are not the same. So it's just important to know whether or not the organization you work with is your hosting organization or supporting organizations, and to answer this question correctly. The next section is on the applicant. So it's asking for your own details. It's asking you to identify your legal representative and also the primary contact person. So your legal representative can be your contact person, but you still need to have at least 2 persons identified. So I've identified Elva as a legal representative here, and I put down myself as both the primary contact person and the contact person for OLS. So yes, it's important to have two contact persons identify here. So one is a legal representative and one is a primary contact person, and a primary contact person is usually the Erasmus coordinator. So somebody who will be probably submitting the application and kind of involved in the implementation of the project. We will go.
Do you have to, sorry, Emilia, do you have to
Yep.
put somebody in there for OLS? That when I was filling out the application form, it stayed red until I clicked OLS.
Yeah, so that's I would see if you don't have anybody for OLS, you can put that the primary contact person is the contact person for
perfect.
OLS.
Yeah, no,
otherwise,
perfect.
it's not gonna go gonna go green. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem. So then under background, so this really, you're answering who are you as an organization in this question. And this is really important question, because while we might know you, this application might be assessed by an external evaluator who doesn't know anything about your organization, and they can't look at your website. So they have to take the information in the form, to assess it. So it's really important to, first of all, answer these questions. Are you a public body? Are you a nonprofit? And type organization. So I selected here type of organization, vocational training, secondary level. It can be tertiary level. Then for adult education as well, it's going to be different. Then in the next section, you are describing your organization. So what are your main activities? What kind of learning programs are you offering? If you're providing more than one program, please specify which of these programs belong to the field of the application. So as I said, you're really, the relevance is 20 marks, and you know who you are as an organization, and you should get all the 20 marks. So answer each element of the question asked. These are just some of our tips in the box below. Describe the size, scope of work, areas of specific expertise and competence, experience of your institution in either vet or adult ed sector. Highlight your expertise, competences, and resources. Tailor information according to the program. So don't copy and paste straight from a website. Kind of think about what department or what sector you're targeting with this application, and then describe that after you kind of give an overview of your organization. What vet or adult ed courses do you deliver, sectors or equivalent level? For non-formal or informal education, tell us what kinds of programs and activities your organization offers. And as I said, be descriptive. So just imagine that whoever is assessing this doesn't know anything at all about your organization, and they're assessing you based on the information you provide in the form. Please describe the learners attending learning programs at your organization. What are their profiles and age group? In particular, please mention if you're regularly working with participants with your opportunities and how. So really go into details. You might not know who your exact participants are for this particular project, but you know in general the profile and age of your learners. Describe them, what sectors, what levels are they attending? Do they have additional needs? What is their background? Do they have fewer opportunities? Do they experience barriers to participation in education? And also providing this information will build a case for justifying including accompanying persons later in the form. How many years of experience do you have? What's the size of your organization? So these are just answering questions. And then it's asking you about your past participation. So if you had any previous project, it's asking you for details of that, and then also just to establish whether you're a newcomer organizational, less experienced organization, or a first-time applicant. There's a principle of proportionality that we apply to assessing all the applications, so we do take into account we know that somebody who's applying for the first time or is a newcomer would not have the same experience or even, project implementation as details as maybe somebody who has done this before. So that's the background. And yeah, as I said, just be descriptive, describe your organization well, the programs that you're targeting with this project, and also the background of your learners and your staff, or all your participants. We'll go next to the project objectives. So in order to kind of set up your project objectives, you need to tell us what are the needs and challenges that your organization is currently facing, and how can this Erasmus Plus Mobility project help you improve the organization for the benefit of all its learners, and illustrate your answers with concrete examples. So these are just, again, some of the tips we put in the box below. So outline the key needs and challenges with an emphasis on organization perspective. So what is it that you're trying to achieve, and what difficulties are you facing, doing that? And what are some key areas for improvement that either, invited experts or staff mobilities or learner mobilities will address with this project? Why are you focusing on these particular goals or these areas? Ultimately, how can the learner or staff experience be improved? This is possible through both learner and staff activities. So staff mobilities, we usually say, can improve the management, design, or delivery of VET or adult ed, which will benefit the learners, and give concrete examples of the needs and challenges. Again, the same principle applies as for the last question. Just imagine that whoever is evaluating this doesn't know anything about your organization, and then this identifying your needs will inform your objectives. So your objectives arise out of the needs identified in the previous question. So the title of the objective, so it's one line, what do you want to achieve? And then we will go underneath it says explanation. So which needs and challenges described in the previous questions are addressed by this objective and how? So as I said, for title, it's one line or one aim per title. For example, you would like to start or continue Erasmus projects to further improve educational provision. Maybe you would like to develop partnerships and connection through Europe, or maybe you would like to provide your learners with an opportunity to undertake either a European work placement or any kind of learning, fulfilling learning experience. It's involving students from X, Y, and Z departments. Maybe you would like to provide staff with opportunities to undertake job shadowing, teaching assignments, or courses and training because you would like to focus on a certain topic that you've, identified in the previous session. And then explanation, always link to the need or challenge that you've described previously. Link how participation in such a European project will help address the need or challenge in your organization. The next is the measuring success. So how are you going to evaluate if the objective has been reached? So you're really thinking of the changes that will occur after you've completed the projects, and also how you will evaluate the changes, and how will you demonstrate that they've occurred between the start and the end of the project. So how will you measure these? Will you use surveys, interviews, focus group, testimonials? Will you set up systems to capture achievements as they happen and then analyze experience and changes? You know, they can be qualitative and quantitative elements to this. So maybe you will measure the amount of new partners that you have, the number of participants, the retention of learners, maybe there are improvements or changes to your teachings, to your teaching, and changes to how courses are designed and delivered. And then also it's asking you, what topics are you going to work in your project, and how will your project contribute to the inclusion and diversity strategy of the program? I think this comes up only in relation to certain topics that you select, but just give examples, anticipates some impact. How will this project contribute to the inclusion and diversity strategy of the program? So you're making sure your project is inclusive, you're identifying any barriers to participation, and making sure that they're kind of mitigated with this project. So that's the project activities. I won't go into activities, I let Stephen do that. I will just briefly go into short-term learning mobility of the learners, because this is where, so this is asking you here for the numbers of learners. As I said, Stephen will cover that. I will just go underneath here. So there's a description part to the activities, and then it's asking you to kind of describe the planned content and profiles of participants. So it's where do you plan to go? When do you plan to do it? Is this 1 flow or 2 flows? How are you going to implement it? Who is going? If you're doing, for example, work placement for the learners, you know, what groups, what do you anticipate the content will be of the work placement? What will they do while abroad? And then describe the expected learning outcomes. What are they going to learn? Learning outcomes must be recognized. So there's Erasmus quality standard. It's kind of recommending that you can use Europass Mobility as a standardized recognition document. So it's asking you kind of to identify your, you know, learning outcomes. What are they going to learn? Is this vocational, interpersonal, communication, transversal, or life skills, and how will they achieve that? And then also, after the activities have taken place, how are you going to evaluate the learning outcomes of this particular activity? So again, what instruments will you use? How will you gather feedback? Will it be surveys, questionnaire, Europass? It's just kind of asking you to elaborate on your activity. And this question, so whatever activity you suggest, you will have the question where it's asking you to kind of describe it, describe who will do it, why, and what are the learning outcomes. And then it'll ask you to which project objectives will the activities contribute. And then this is, I kind of said this at the start, but when we were talking about supporting organization, that under the activities, it will ask you, how did you find, or how are you going to find hosting organization? So it is acknowledging, even by the question itself, that you don't have to have the partner or organization when you're making the application, but you might have some idea based on the needs and challenges you identified. Maybe you know that you would like to learn more about, I don't know, outdoor education in Norway, or, you know, any type of example. So just link them to your needs and objectives and demonstrate how they would be appropriate partner for your project. And for some of the individual mobilities, you have requested a large number of accompanying persons. So when I was completing this application for this workshop, I selected, I think, 8 accompanying persons. So if you do select a large number, it will ask you to justify it. So maybe you don't know exactly who your participants will be, but you anticipate that you would like to include participants with fewer opportunities. So just describe that. You know, why are they participants of fewer opportunities? Maybe they haven't traveled before, maybe they have disabilities, you know, maybe they will need personal, whatever it is, whatever reasons it is, you are anticipating at this stage, you might not know for sure. So just describe that and kind of explain it why. So I will just, before I finish, I will just go to quality standards. So the quality standards, I'm skipping activities. Stephen will cover that. So the quality standards, it's kind of just giving you quality standards in details to read it, to acknowledge, and to kind of just say, yes, I've read and understood, and I agree to these quality standards, that they will be implemented in your project. However, we urge you to really read this carefully and to think about how these will be embedded in your project, because the follow-up, this is part of the follow-up part of your application form, and it carries 30 marks. So, you know, you're not just acknowledging that they are there, you are expected to demonstrate how they will be embedded in your project. So we've already covered kind of inclusion and diversity, and they give you kind of each, you get an example of what each of these means. And then when it comes to good management of mobility activities, it's very important just to announce that, just to emphasize that the beneficiary organization must keep ownership of core implementation tasks and may not outsource these tasks to other organizations. So regardless of whether you're working with the supporting organization or with the partner or hosting organization, you are in charge, and you know, it's that the core implementation tasks are your responsibility. Then there's providing quality and support of the participants. So like some of the examples are just make sure that they're selected through a transparent, fair and inclusive selection procedure. They receive appropriate preparation in terms of practical, professional, cultural aspects. So this can be different things depending on the participants that you're taking abroad. Some people bring Garda to talk about health and safety. Sometimes they are, you know, linguistic preparation. Sometimes they're cultural aspects. Sometimes it's team building. You know, people will live together, live abroad. So it depends on the needs of your participants. And then monitoring and mentoring, support during the activity, keeping an eye on the learning outcomes. So these are quality standards, and they will be embedded in your project. And then in the follow-up, it's actually asking you to demonstrate how. So just give examples, you know, don't just say, we will contribute to the basic principles. Show us how you will contribute to the basic principles. What actions will you do to actually make sure that they're embedded in your project? Be descriptive, give examples, you know. For examples, for inclusion, you will include participants with few opportunities, you know, describe what that involves. You will use blended methods of communication as a way to encourage digital transformation. Maybe this was just one of the examples I took from one of the final reports. So keep cups, they had keep cups for all participants, kind of to encourage sustainability during the project. Then they'll also ask you about your project team, division of tasks, you know, who will participate in the project, what are their roles, position, expertise. You don't have to name them. You know, how will they how will they contribute to different tasks in the project, selection of participants, preparation of participants, supporting participants during the activity. So this really question is asking you to demonstrate that you have the resources to manage and implement the project. You know, how will you select your participants? Clear selection criteria. You know, who will do this? Who will do cultural preparation, language preparation, pre-departure preparation? For how long? Will this be once a week, for 4 weeks, or for 6 weeks? What content will you cover? Who will deliver this? The support, are you sending accompanying persons? Have you identified somebody in the host company or your own organization who will be in charge of this? What are their contact details? In terms of learning outcomes, so how are they developed, defined, and evaluated? You know, if this is a work placement, is it QQI accredited? Outline how it is defined and evaluated. So these are just some of the examples and kind of what to keep an eye on. It's, as I said, it's very important to keep the ownership of the activities, and it just repeats from the previous page of what that involves. And then what will you do to integrate the results of implemented mobility activities in your organization's regular work? So this is really just making sure that not only the participants benefit from this project, but that also everybody else benefits, or you know, that your whole organization benefits from this. You know, so how will you do this? What will you do to make sure that, you know, that you share the results of this, and that you embed the results of this in your organization? and then also to share results within your organization and with other organizations and the public. So just be mindful of the quality standards, argue for active participation in the network of Erasmus organizations, and then be descriptive. So what methods will you use? Press, newsletters, website, social media, PAL, any twinning, we highly recommend them. Presentations, videos, conferences, what is the message you will share? What is the audience you want to reach? And then also to publicly acknowledge European Union funding. So you have to display the EU flag to acknowledge the support received under the Erasmus Plus program in all communication and promotional material. This is both to acknowledge the public money you've received, but it's also to inspire other organizations with the possibilities that the program offers. And the last thing that I will cover is just the project summary. So you're completing this at the end of the form, but this is the first thing we see when we open the form. So just again, restate your background. Why did you apply for this project? It should match what's in the rest of the form. What are your objectives? So what do you want to achieve by implementing this project? So aims and specific objectives, the number and profile of participants, and a description of project activities. And also results. So what results do you expect your project to have? Just describe the anticipated results and the impact you envisage this project will have. So this is the quality side of the application form. I know I kind of went through this very fast, but we still have the budget part to cover. So I might just stop sharing here and just see if there's any questions before I pass over to Stephen. Okay, so there's questions that have been answered in the chat. Okay.
Okay, let's take over.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Stephen.
Cheers. Okay. Oh, I think I'm in as a guest. Would you mind making me
Sure.
Thanks. Perfect.
We will share this, yes.
Yeah, everybody can see that okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Just as you noticed earlier, the tool kind of crashed for a few minutes. It did go offline and then it came back on really slow. So we should be okay now. But if you were logged out, you should just try to refresh the browser and you should be able to get back in now anyway. It's back up and running. Okay. So as Mila covered off a lot of those things, there's no need for me to go through them again. We'll kind of just focus on project objectives to create your project, the activities and the budget, okay? So first, when you're going to go into here, we have a few things set up already as Mila went through. So you will need to outline certain things for your objectives. Then underneath, we have the activities. So when you go in here, you'll notice straight off the fact that you have a small overview of what you've already applied for here as well, okay? And so if you do need to add more, it's just going to be adding activity here with the plus sign. And what you can do then is this will kind of give you the drop down. You can see already what's been applied for, which is the short-term mobility, learning mobility, and invited experts. Then you have your new row here, which is your activity type label, because it's blank at the moment because you haven't selected what it's going to be. So you can keep adding those for every kind of activity that you want to add. So we've put in 2 there that we'll work through, and we'll come back to those in a few minutes. We can see here there's 2 set up already in the green. So that's your short-term learning mobility. So when we click on it here, you can see here there's your breakdown of the activity itself. And then you can see here what's already been pre-filled in. Now I'm going to go through all these in a few minutes, so I'll show you how to get to these numbers. So you can see the first one showing up is your mobility flow found. And we have here, which is the ID, which is the short-term learning mobility. The destination country is going to be Spain. Number of participants then is 24. Duration in days is 12. Just always remember that you're only entering in the mobility activity days. Don't include your travel days in here, okay? So these are just the days that the actual mobility takes place, which is 12. You have then the number of accompanying persons and the duration again that those accompanying persons are staying for in days. And again, just don't include travel days in there. These are just the days that they're over there with the guys themselves, okay? So then you see more of a breakdown underneath here. So you have here, again, the short-term mobility going to Spain with 24 participants. you've now identified that of those participants, 8 of those are participants for fewer opportunities. It's very important to make sure you're requesting the right amount there. We are aware you might know how many are going to be, but to be honest, like if you look at what participants are with fewer opportunities are, a lot of you guys will have them. So just make sure you're identifying them at the end. If it's different, if it's less, that's okay. You won't report as many, but just make sure you're thinking ahead. You will actually have participants for fewer opportunities. Okay. Your hosting environment then as well, from a drop down, company or vet school. So you can leave that. If any of these are apprentices, again, just identify them, or recent graduates. Just always remember you have 12 months after a learner graduates from your organizations that you can bring them away as well if they're vet. Okay. This description, as Mila broke down, that's just going to be a little bit of just text that you guys are going to pop in there as well. Okay. So the one underneath then we have is invited experts, and you can see again this one's already pre-filled as well by Mila. So again, you have this time the mobility flow ID shows as expert 1, whereas this one is shown as short-term 1. Okay. So again, number of participants 1, duration days 2, and always it's really important to always just emphasize that you don't include your travel days. There is no accompanying persons with invited experts, which is fine. So again, when you break it down, it's just the same as above. You have your text boxes, and then just identify, well, they're not going to be a participant for fewer opportunities. So as I said, if you want to create the activity, go back up here and click on the little plus, and that's going to add your activity type label in here. Okay. So you can see when we go in now, it's blank. There's nothing here. So we can start filling it in and seeing what it is that you guys want to apply for. Okay. So first off, you are going to go into sorry, just give me 1 second. Add. If you want to add more than one, you have 2 flows down in here as well. You can delete at any time as well. Just give me 1 second. And I need to go back up here for a sec. Sorry, back into your. It shows up here in activities when you've created. Apologies. It's shown as incomplete. Okay. So you can see here, you're going to select what activity type it is that you want from here. So we'll have a look at, you have all of your drop downs here. So we'll just take, for example, group mobility of vet learners. Okay. And if you bring it down, you can see that it's just sitting here with nothing in it because we haven't filled in any information, which is fine. Sorry, just go back to your activities. I'll always give you an overview flow of what you've just applied for again. So you can see here from those short term, you have 24 participants, average duration in days is 12, number of accompanying persons was 8, and the average duration is 7 here. What you're not seeing is your travel days. So again, we'll come back to those later. You can see they're shown as complete once you're in green, which is fine. So we've created this activity. It's still shown as incomplete, which is okay. We go back to it now, and you can see a name has appeared, which was blank. It's now shown as group mobility of vet learners. And when you pop in here, then you have your destination country. I seen the question earlier about if there's a change in your countries from when you've applied to when you actually take place. As Elva said, always have a look through the guide. It does give a list on the page of the group countries. So you can see here you have group 1, group 2, and group 3, and there is the amounts as well that are awarded by Lergus for those countries as well. So you can see we always award the higher amounts as well, which is the 191 for staff, 169, and 148 for the lower for group 3. Vet learners, then we go to 127, 110, or 93 as well for those group countries. So go through the guide, have a look at what countries you're looking to plan your mobilities to as well. Okay, because if you do change it to group 1 to group 2 to group 3, you could be reducing your budget. So always make sure that when you are applying, you're applying with what you have in mind and what's going to take place as well. Okay. So it's just a simple drop down then to select your country that you're going to. So we will take France. Number of participants that are going. So we're just going to select 2 for this group mobility. Duration in days, we will put it in for 6. And then the number of accompanying persons, we're sending 1. Okay. And the duration, they can stay there for the full duration with the guys in the group mobility. So we'll select 6 there as well. Okay. Now you can see now it's brought us down to the next flow here. And then many of these are going to be participants for fewer opportunities. I'm going to report 2. And you can go past blended mobility. You don't need to worry about that. And as Mila said, just put in some text for the description. Okay. Just excuse me, put in the NAs. So Now you can see that's already gone from red to green because there's nothing else for me to fill in here, okay? So we've created that now. If it's sitting there as a flow, which is grand. So if we want to look at the budget, which is next, we can pop into org support. So you can see your budget's already start to fill in for your organizational support from what is already awarded. So you don't need to worry about that. You can see it's all sitting there, the 350 for your vet learners, your 100 for your invited expert, and the 100 again for those group mobility of vet learners as well, okay? So then if we bring it down, we have travel. And we can see again that the group mobility here has the travel set in already for the other two. So we need to select it from your drop down box here. There's a link as well that's provided to the EU distance calculator. So if you pop in the address from where you are to where you're going, it'll give you your distance band that you've been awarded. It's awarded as the crow flies. So, you know, it's directly across. So it won't kind of take into any considerations, any kind of twists and turns. Once you've selected your distance band, you can see now you get the new unit cost, which is here as well, and you get your total then for the 3 people that are taking place, which is your 2 participants and 1 accompanying person. Okay, so just to notice, there is new different unit costs for the travel for this year, where it was previously 275, it's now 309. That's to take into consideration inflation and stuff like that. So just be aware of that as well. You have a little bit extra there. So that's the travel done. Individual support then is underneath. You can see it's already filled in for the 2 guys above, which is the short term and the invited expert. That question that popped up earlier was to leave your travel days blank. That's because you pop your travel days in here when you're doing your individual support. It's actually the only thing you need to pop in, okay? So you want to type in 2 travel days for everybody there, and you're going to just go past that down with your tab. When you tab out, it refreshes your budget to reflect that those 6 extra days in total that have been added in there, okay? And again, you can see there the base support for the participants and for accompanying persons then as well on your totals, okay? Next one down is linguistic support. If there was anything for the OLS tool, like you did earlier, you needed to kind of prompt who's looking after it. You just enter in the amount of participants that'll be using the tool, the language you're using, and the number of OLS that's available. There is no budget per se for that. It's just the OLS tool licenses that'll be provided to yourselves as well. Prep visits take place for short-term mobility of vet learners. This is kind of something that's here to maybe if it's a new partner you're working with, or if you're bringing some participants with fewer opportunities or disabilities that you maybe need to send somebody over to run a preparatory visit before they go over. You can have up to 3 people that can go. You can see here that the unit cost, again, it's a unit cost. It was 575 last year. That's gone up to 680. That's 680 per person, and that works out 2040. Okay, so there's nothing else to that one. That's in there. And again, if you were to pop them in, you can just pop in the amount they're going, and it's going to work out and calculate your budget here. Always again, read up on what exactly your APV, which is called advanced preparatory visit, is eligible with. As Elva pointed out earlier, the likes of courses and trainings won't be. It's more in line for short-term earnings or participants with fewer opportunities. Then we have underneath the inclusion support as well. So inclusion supports are your costs. There's 2 of them. There's inclusion support for organizations, which works out at €100 per participant with fewer opportunities. It also can be then a real cost, which you can see here, which you will actually work out and pop in here yourself. So what it is there's kind of a breakdown here of what exactly your inclusion support covers. Okay, so again, just make yourself familiar with what it is that you're looking for. You might need inclusion supports to cover costs in that for any kind of travelers, translators, assistants, whatever it is that's going. So if this is something that you might need, again, you could be future planning here, so you're not too sure. There's no harm in applying for these things at application. If it's not used at final report, it can be sent back to Lergus at the end. So what I would say is these are costs that are 100% awarded of an actual cost, so they are receipted, and it is something you might need to work out yourself. Like you might need to see how much a translator could cost, how much an assistant would cost for this. Anything related to those participants for fewer opportunities or disabilities. Okay. When you select that amount that you're going to pop in here, just say, for example, you have 1,200, you can see the justification and description box is opened up. You have 1,000 characters. You just need to pop in as much information as you can there as to why you're applying for this amount and what it's going to be used for. As I said, you mightn't know who is applying, but it's always handy to have these costs available to yourselves or the participants at any time, okay? So the next one underneath then is exceptional costs, which is a little bit different. So exceptional costs may be claimed for costs linked to entry requirements for specific countries, including visas, resident permits, vaccinations, and medical certificates, okay? So again, if you need to add it in here, you just click on the add element box. You're going to select which type of exceptional cost you're looking for. You're going to link it to that mobility flow that you have up and running, which could be, say, the short term, which is fine. So that feeds in the information that you've already entered. Again, the people that you might need this for, could be 5 of them. You're going to pop in here the description justification for those costs. And again, you're going to put in how much that comes to as well, okay? So you can see then it's 100% again, so it's a real cost, okay? So you'll be awarded that. So you can see that amount is now popped up here too. The financial guarantee you don't need to worry about unless we come back to you about that. So look, that is a brief overview of the budget. So we can do one more, which we've created here. Let me pop up to our activities. So you can see now our group mobility of vet learners is also showing as complete. It's really important to make sure none of those are shown in the red by the time it comes to you submitting the report. As Neela said earlier, you know, you need to have these in a good bit before. I would not be leaving until 10:30 or, you know, anything like that. Make sure you have them, you've given yourself the time to submit it just in case anything goes wrong. And we can see here we have set up that last one here, which is still shown as incomplete. So we're going to pick another mobility and we will choose courses and training. Okay, so you can see here, it's still shown blank, which is fine. By the way, nice little overview here will show you an individual breakdown of each grant for per activity that you've got set up here as well. Okay, so let's pop into courses and training. You will again select your country. So always just keep them in wherever it is that you're going. Number of participants will say 4. Sorry. Duration of days can never go more than 10 with courses and training as well. Well, it can, but we only award for 10 days maximum, okay? And I think if you prompt on this here, it'll give you a little breakdown of that as well. Yeah. So you've got your 10 days awarded here, and you've got no accompanying persons will be taking place here. Participants for fewer opportunities, again, maybe 2. It's up to you guys what you think you'll have. The description, and you guys can just pop in whatever it is that you need to show us. And that's a little bit repetitive, apologies. Okay. And then we pop back in here. And now what you can see is, again, a breakdown. So courses and training is awarded 100 rather than 350 per PAX, per participant. And you can see a full breakdown there. So then you go into your travel. And again, you're going to select your distance band. I know it's 500 to 199, but I'll just select an incorrect distance band for the moment just to show you that it does change and reflects in every different distance band that you guys have, okay? Individual support then, similar to before, we'll pop in. And we're in here now, and you want to pop in your travel days, okay? So 2. Yeah, you can see your budget's out of change. It's in real time, so it's completely changing every time you're doing it, which is good. There won't be linguistic support related to that, and that's fine, it doesn't pop up there. And then you have your course fees here. So as I said earlier, you can see here that it's a maximum of 10 days per participant, and you can see here the course fees, per days is capped out at 80 as well. So that's 3,200 here for those participants. You can pop in if you had to worry about that. And your inclusion supports are here as well. If you did have any, you can pop them in there as well, okay? And again, if you wanted to pop in more exceptional costs, you can go ahead and do that too. So that's just an overview of the budget and where you're going. If you have any questions, you can pop them in. You can see, as I said, this is completely updating the whole time you're creating it. So you'll have a whole an idea of where your budget's at as well, how much is awarded to each activity. I'm going to stop sharing. And if you have any questions, then we can answer them in the chat.
Any questions? Should we maybe stop recording now since we've kind of covered the slides and the application form, and then maybe we can answer questions then? Is that okay?
Yeah.